Welcome to the Sisterhood of Healing podcast, the podcast that wants to help you reach your best and most divine potential. Each week, we dive into topics concerning inner healing, wellness, and spirituality. We discuss strategies and practice from our own personal experiences regarding higher energies, trauma, and connecting to the divine as we take you through our own personal journeys to discover the highest versions of ourselves. In combination with guest speakers, we bring you a comprehensive guide to mental and spiritual wellness and the ability to connect to yourself and the world around you on a deeper level. I'm Nicole, and I'm Christina, and we are two sisters who want to take you along on our spiritual and healing journey. We are each on our own individual healing and spiritual path and bring unique perspectives regarding yoga, chakra healing, meditation, intuition, and trauma healing. Sometimes life is messy, sometimes it's confusing, and sometimes everything falls perfectly into place. Join us as we navigate the path to divine enlightenment together. Welcome, sisters, brothers, and non-binary listeners to episode 15 of the Sisterhood of Healing podcast. This is our final episode of season 1, and on today's episode, we're going to be showcasing some of our favorite highlights from season 1. So we sat down together and we chose moments that resonated with both of us. And as we were listening to our episodes and we came across these moments right away, both of us were like, yes, that's what we want to, that's my highlight. That's what we want to acknowledge. So we're excited to get started and talk about why these were some of our favorite moments of season 1. I'd also like to make note that we both rocked up in the same outfit today, which we do very often, which kind of proves how in sync we are. Our burgundy tights and black sweaters. So I felt that was important to make note of how in sync we are today. So same outfits, same special moments. Yep, same mindsets. So the first moment that we wanted to take a look at and discuss a little bit was the conversation that we had with Gareth from The Fabric of Being. We thought that he gave us a lot of really deep spiritual information. Yeah. And particularly when he's talking about love. Yeah, I found myself in awe throughout this entire conversation. I'm so captivated by everything that he was saying, and everything truly resonated with me. So let's give this clip a listen.
You know, for ethereal people that group into circles and chant and stuff, but love's one of the most powerful forces in existence. In fact, it's the fundamental foundation of reality, and love can take the hardest of beatings and get back up and go again. And when you understand what love is, we're actually made of love. So when mystics in the past have expressed that, they experienced God maybe, and that God was love, is because to be in the presence of your pure awareness and being is to be in the presence and the pure aware of being of the infinite, which, some religions like to call God. And when you're in that presence, it feels like love. It feels like ecstasy, and it feels like bliss. To actually be present with the fabric of your own self, you then feel that love and bliss. So love isn't something to attain, and it's not an ideal or idea. It's just an expression of the self once you reach that place.
Okay, so everything Gaz said completely captivated me. I think everything that came out of his mouth was full of pure love, pure beauty, pure innocence, essence. He's one of my favorite people. And I said to him, we hadn't seen him in a year.
Over a year.
Yeah. And just
Actually, you hadn't. I've seen him sooner.
Yeah.
But
and just seeing his face pop up on the computer screen, because it was a Zoom conversation, instantaneously brought me so much joy. He is one of those people who has this aura about them, just this beauty about them. His soul is so pure. And it was so just seeing his face. I can't even explain what it was. It just produced such an inherent feeling of joy in me.
Yeah, no, such a great conversation to have with him. And
this was a really long episode that we had, and we spoke for like an hour before we even started to record. We could have talked all night with him. You're just an amazing human being, and the beauty of his soul just resonated throughout the entire episode. But the reason why we chose this clip is one thing that he said is that love is the fundamental foundation of reality. So beautiful.
Yeah, and if we were all able to lead from a place of love, think of how beautiful this world would be. Think of how there would be no wars, there would be no jealousy, there would be no conflict if everyone was giving love and allowing themselves to receive love, which is really big because I think a lot of people don't receive love because there's a lot of consequences that come along with that, like heartbreak or disappointment or whatever. So I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to receive love, and a lot of people don't know how to give love because they haven't been shown love.
Well, we are all made of love, and we are all made of the same higher power. And once we recognize that there's more similarities than there are differences, then we can learn to love one another, and we find that love for someone else easier. Like we see ourselves within others more clearly.
I would say that love's even a basic instinct. Like is it a basic instinct to love someone else? I don't know.
I don't know. I think you have to learn how to love.
I think it comes from that. So one of the other things that Gaz said in that clip too was love is an expression of the self. So I think maybe you have to learn to love yourself first.
Yeah, and that's like seeing yourself in other people, right? Like having empathy for others.
So many good things come from a place of love. It breaks my heart when people, don't love themselves, have a difficulty showing love for others, have a difficulty expressing or accepting love, live a life devoid of love, have never experienced love in any form. Whether it's children or whatever, it's so heartbreaking. It's one of the most beautiful things. And I loved how he said love is the fundamental foundation of reality, because it really is. It's what we base our lives on. Like if you think of our first relationships with our families and, how either an abundance of love or a lack of love will affect an individual, how that impacts their ability to then go into the world and love themselves and love others. It really is so foundational.
Yeah, like personally speaking, I found that when I started to love myself, I was able to show up in the world in a completely different way. I was able to show up for other people. But unfortunately, we live in a society that profits off of people not loving themselves. We live in a society where corporations are making money based off of people having the desire to constantly improve themselves because they don't like who they are.
Look at the fitness industry.
Yeah.
It totally capitalizes on that.
Yeah.
No, it's so unfortunate. Yeah, I had that experience too. I'd always been like, yeah, I like myself. Of course I love myself. I like who I am. I know who I am. I love my life. But it wasn't until I did that like deep shadow work, soul searching, that I realized, oh, I love others first before I love myself.
Yeah. Yeah, my life completely started to change when I realized that I have a high worth. And when I started to put myself before others, then I really started to love myself.
And I think that's what, when you hear the phrase, how can you love someone else without loving yourself first? Like you need to love yourself first before you love someone else. And like that's essentially what it means, like understanding your value and your worth. it's not about liking yourself. Like I always liked myself, but understand your value and your worth inherently. So then you can stand from a place of pureness and I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. Just grace. And then give that love out to others, but always maintaining that place of grounding for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's such a strong foundation.
Yeah, it really is.
I literally have this picture in my head of when you love yourself first and you're giving it out to the world. Like I have this picture of an individual standing grounded and then like light just beaming out from them, like boom, like a big, almost like mushroom cloud explosion.
An aura.
Of just light. Yeah.
Aura of light.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I picture of it just beaming out into the world because you are just so grounded in love. Love is, I just love. It's just one of the most beautiful things. And a lot of people, I heard a phrase the other day. I can't remember what I was listening to another podcast and they were saying love, a lot of people are afraid to love because they've been hurt by love. And this person said, it wasn't love that hurt you. It was people who are hurt that hurt you.
Yeah.
Love does not hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Love does not hurt you. It comes from a place of purity. And so much of what Gaz said when he was talking about, like the fabric of being, when he was talking about mediumship and talking about, like connecting to whatever our higher power was and how that's love. Like we are all grounded in love.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever gods, deities, energies, whatever it is that we believe in, like, and a lot of religions around the world, like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, like love others as you would yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so simple. And yet we don't practice our lives in that way.
Because we struggle with loving others because we struggle with loving ourselves. Ultimately.
Yep.
Ultimately. So nice. I can't wait to have another conversation with Gaz.
Yeah.
He just lights up my world. So the second person that we thought of, or the second clip we both resonated with, was a clip from Corinne Placharzik, the trauma specialist that we spoke with. So the clip with Corinne that resonated with both of us was when she discussed generational trauma and how trauma is passed on. She said it's formed in the womb, right? And this is something that we're both starting to understand, and how trauma has shown up, and how we're trying to heal the trauma of our own families. And we're carrying trauma that our grandparents never dealt with, who I'm assuming their parents never dealt with. Like, and it's been an interesting process, like a really interesting process. And we've actually had family members say to us, like, oh, what's happened to you in your life? You've never experienced trauma. And it's just so, it's dismissive. Yeah. And also like ignorant, right? Like it just shows how many people don't understand how inherently we're all connected, how when we don't heal ourselves, when we don't acknowledge the things that cause us pain or trauma, how that impacts our relationship with others, explicitly or implicitly.
Yeah, I think it's also, it shows that people don't understand what trauma is. I think a lot of people understand trauma as like some
PTSD.
Yeah, some like crazy event that happened, like a car crash, a fire, something like that. Not something like being a child growing up in a household where your father was constantly yelling at your mother, a situation like that. Like that is trauma. And I think the more that people become aware of these different types of trauma, these different like scenarios that cause trauma, then trauma is just going to perpetuate through generations. Like it really is our responsibility to heal that generational trauma.
And I think it's so important for us to stop dismissing one another. Like when someone says, this has been my experience, or like, this is what I'm feeling. I'm carrying this. I'm carrying someone else's trauma. I'm angry. Nicole and I like have had so many conversations. Why Why have we always felt so angry?
Because we're holding on to the anger of
People
our
who came
family.
before us.
Yeah.
And it's really, really heavy, and it's been quite the journey to process it. And also it's been really difficult to see the individuals who have kind of passed down that trauma to you still struggling with their trauma and refusing to acknowledge that they have experienced any hardships, despite the fact that they talk about those hardships.
Yeah.
Which is really frustrating. But again, I mean, it's not our responsibility to fix the people that came before us, but to fix ourselves so we can heal from whatever happened before us.
Yeah, and we're not passing that down to the next generation. So let's give a listen to this clip with Corinne Placharzik.
This dysregulated caregiving, actually, our nervous system starts shaping inside the womb, and that's when we can already start having these habitual response patterns form. So if you have two parents, two caregivers who are fighting, and you're in the womb, you're learning those responses, and you're already producing responses. You're learning, you're hearing, your nervous system is taking it in. It's taking, because the nervous system scans and connects with other people's nervous systems. So it's learning before you're even born. You are forming habitual response patterns.
Wow, that's deep. Is that in any way related to, like, when they talk about like generational trauma, like, is it also formed in the womb? Wow.
Yep. So that's why generational trauma is super, super real, because our nervous system starts forming in the womb, and that's when we start responding to the external stimuli, because of whatever that caregiving situation looks like. So I might not have known what my parents were doing before I was born, but it happened, and my nervous system sensed it, and it learned ways to respond. It learned ways that my mother responded. It learned ways about the other caregiver, how the other caregiver, whatever the situation looks like, how they responded. And it learned ways of how to survive and adapted it.
My mind is blown right now.
I know, I'm speechless.
Wow.
That is crazy. Like, our bodies are so intelligent.
I feel like there's so much about our bodies we don't know. Like, I know there's a lot about the brain we don't know, but we don't, right? I have no words right now.
We're still at a point where we're exploring it all, because there's so much.
Yeah, and we're so not connected to ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we're so disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah, and that, I mean, disconnect with trauma too. That's the biggest thing. I mean, we expect all these people to. I mean, we were talking about yoga at one point. So you want a person to connect with their body and like learn their body and gain that sense of control, right? Well, a person who's experienced trauma isn't going to be able to do that. So actually, by doing a yoga practice with assist, even with these Lululemon yoga outfits that cost my whole arm and leg, personally, I mean, I would love to be able to afford it, but I can't right now. That's actually establishing a power dynamic, which actually perpetuates a cycle of abuse and oppression.
I love so much of what Corinne was saying there, because I've always had, like, I have no psychological background, so I have not studied this in any way, but just from observing people, listening to people's stories, learning day by day, whatever, I've always had this belief that our problems, the problems that plague society, the problems that plague certain groups within society, or the struggles that they face, like, they're all systemic, whether they're systemically imposed on us or on those groups of people, or they are systemic generational problems. And a lot of people will try to heal the outcome of whatever that problem is, rather than going to the root. And the root, what it seems like Corinne was saying is this trauma, right? It's this trauma that's passed down. It's these trauma responses that we've developed. And it continues to manifest itself in this cycle of, like she said, abuse and oppression. And a lot of our issues within society, and like I see it with the kids at school, I see it with like just so many things. Like it's systemic. Like it's passed down, and we need to go to the root. And like we are too busy putting on band-aids and not actually addressing what the real issue is.
People don't want to have those hard conversations.
No.
Like it's a lot of work to create change, to change these patterns, these cycles that we're living in. And yeah, like no one wants to address it.
And I've had conversations with individuals who they'll say, I've never told anyone that before, and I'm glad that I just told you. I feel better. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been holding that for?
Yeah. What if you had more of those conversations?
Yes. What if we created more safe spaces to have more of those conversations where people were feeling more comfortable saying to their friend, I'm really struggling, and we're feeling comfortable taking advice from a friend, or, taking that next step to getting help and processing their trauma and speaking with a professional. And
yeah, and like I hope I can be that person that holds a safe space for people around me to feel comfortable to come to me, to be able to voice their feelings and their experiences. But so often, like, people don't have someone to lean on. All it takes is one person to listen. But so many people don't have that one person.
I saw with the kids at school, and I think I spoke about this in a podcast before, but the kids are coming off of COVID and being at home. A lot of them are really struggling. A lot of the adolescents are really struggling this year. And I saw it a lot with the first couple months of school, the conversations that kids were just coming up and voluntarily having, because they're like, I just need to tell someone this. I just need to have this conversation and to like have. And I think too, society has told us, don't air your dirty laundry with everyone else, right? Like that's a common phrase. If something's happening within the family, if you, like you're struggling with something, keep it to yourself, deal with it on your own. And I think that has, it's been a detriment to a lot of people.
Yeah, like how do we know that these issues are happening? If we're forcing people to deal with these things on their own, they don't have that place or that person to go to discuss what they're going through, to get their feelings out. Like there's no support system there.
Corinne also talks about, in relation to that, she talks about survival and adaptation. And so, when we're not reaching out to those support systems, if we don't have those support systems, if we've been taught to, keep your problems to yourself and, keep a stiff upper lip and continue on, you are literally living a life of survival. Like you are surviving day by day. You're just trying to get through the day with whatever it is you're struggling with, whatever it is you're experienced. You're never processing it. You're holding it in your body, and then you're passing it on.
And you're contributing to that abuse. If you have someone that goes to you that's, pouring their heart out, telling you what they're going through, and your response back is like, that's your problem, like you are contributing to that abuse.
And it's not, and like keep in mind, it's not up to us. If someone comes to you and they tell you something, they tell you what they've experienced, they share their traumas with you, their struggles with you, it's not necessarily up to us to fix that. We don't necessarily have the skills to do that, but it is so important for us to hold space, a positive space, and for us to acknowledge, just so that like someone knows that they're heard, that they're seen, that everything's going to be okay. Like just to be that safe space is so important.
Yeah. Corinne had mentioned that due to trauma, we learn how to disconnect with our bodies. It's a way of coping with the trauma. And we talked about yoga and how that shows up in classes and practice, and people don't know how to connect their mind or their breath to their body. It's a foreign concept because they've been so conditioned to doing it for their entire lives, literally out of survival.
Mm-hmm. I think this was the episode that perhaps I learned the most about. Corinne just came to us. First of all, she was incredibly passionate about her specialty, about trauma, about the adolescents she worked with. And I thought that was so special because, I mean, and we were talking about earlier with Gaz, like she's trying to connect others from a place of love, like a place of passion. And so much of what she said connected the dots for further helping me understand things that I was trying to process, things that I had experienced. She just gave me a deeper understanding of not only myself, but the students I work with, the relationships that I have. So it was a really profound experience speaking with her. Mm-hmm. Also, I loved her energy.
Oh yeah, it was a fantastic conversation. So I'm reading this book on trauma, as you know. So I know a little bit about trauma and how it manifests within the body and how we learn to live our lives. But Corinne just shone an even brighter light on trauma and how we live our lives with it. And just like you had said, it gave me a deeper understanding of people, of others, like a greater awareness of why they are the way they are, that we're all literally just living in response to whatever has traumatized us.
Yeah. And when someone's not leading from that place of love, there's a reason. There's a reason inside them why, you know, again, we say this all the time, hurt people hurt people. So it makes you approach relationships, your interactions differently, because I know for me personally, I have learned not to take things personal because I know that that person's probably dealing with something, that the way that they're acting towards me, if it's not, you know, coming from a place of love, positivity, joy, or support, it's probably because they've either been conditioned to act that way, that these feelings, inherent behaviors, inherent like survival type, whatever it is, it's been passed down and they haven't recognized that or processed that. And I think unfortunately a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't, right? Like we're all just trying to survive. We're all just trying to get by. And unless something catastrophic happens, you're like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm fine. I just got to you know what? I got to go to work today. I got to pay my bills.
We don't think twice about the way that we're living.
No.
Or why we're living that way.
Why we're living that way. Why am I choosing to speak to someone this way? Or why am I choosing to treat myself this way? Which is a big one too, right? And that manifests itself in different ways.
Yeah, no, we had such a great conversation with Corinne. So the next episode we had following Corinne's was again on trauma, and we had Ashley and Michelle as a guest for that episode, and we discussed finding strength through tragedy. And Ashley was so vulnerable, was so open and honest about her experience with trauma. So we're going to share one of our favorite clips. There were so many fantastic moments in this episode. So yes, let's share one of our favorite clips with you.
Like all that's left for me, for my family, is my aunt, my grandma, and my cousins. That's it. I had to cut ties with anything that wasn't serving my purpose, that was harming my growth, my journey, in order to get to where I need to be.
That's
I think it's strong to have that mindset.
Yeah, that's very strong of you to do, because I know like a lot of people say, oh, but like, but their blood, like how can you cut blood out of your life? But if those relationships aren't serving you and they have more of a toxic role in your life, then there's no reason to keep those people around you. No. I think you use the term like if it's not healthy for you. Like we know that, drinking poison, that's not healthy for you. Why would you do that? We know that eating a lot of junk food, that's not healthy for you. Why would you do that? We're so conscious of what's physically healthy and not healthy for us, we forget about what's mentally and emotionally healthy. And it's so easy for us to just be like, oh, like you said, it's blood. Like blood's thicker than water. It's your family. How could you do that? But family can be unhealthy for you spiritually and emotionally, mentally as well.
It really can be. It can be pure toxicity. And like I really strongly believe that family is what you make it and what you choose it to be. Like my family are the people that showed up every day at the trial for me. Those are the people that I have so much respect and admiration for, and who were honestly like they gave up weeks of their life to be in that trial every single day for me. And that's something that there's no amount of gifts, there's no amount of appreciation to show them for how much it meant to me to have them by my side day in and day out.
So this conversation that we had with Ashley was heartbreaking to hear her story, and it was heavy to hear, especially because Ashley is a close friend of mine. It was really difficult to hear her story and to hear all of the pain that she has suffered. But it was also very heartwarming at the same time to see how much she has grown because of this experience. And she really is serving her life's purpose now by trying to raise awareness for domestic violence and provide resources to those who have experienced these situations. Her resilience and her strength, her courage, and knowing her as a teenager, like I was, not much older than her, not much older than you guys, but meeting her as a teenager, she was such a sweet girl, and knowing that she had to suffer so much broke my heart. But knowing how like badass she is, like how amazing of a life she's built for herself afterwards, and how she came out of it so much stronger. Yeah. And that's like the lesson that I took from it, is that like she's learned that's her. Yes. And so the clip that we played, she's mentioning how she really like severed ties with family members because those people were showing up as toxic relationships in her life, and she's created her own family by building it with people who are just genuine people who have an interest in her well-being. And I think it's so important just to drive home that we have the ability to create the life that we want. And sometimes it does take removing toxic or negative people out of our lives. Yeah, and I like that she addressed the issue of family, because I feel like, I mean, Nicole and I have we believe strongly in family and we value family, but I think as a society, the narrative surrounding families is that you need to put your family first, that you can't, if you turn against the opinions, the beliefs, the values of your family, you're turning against your family. But sometimes those values, beliefs, actions, words, whatever it is, like they're not serving you. Like they're actually harming you. And to be brave enough, like it's brave to step away from your family. Yeah. It's brave to know or to realize like, no, I deserve better than
the situation that I was born into.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. It's like I deserve better than the situation I was born into. I deserve better than, being treated by this or being restricted to these situations. So to have the courage to rise above that and do what's best for you is so admirable. And that's one thing that I admire about Ashley. And it's so hard. It's so difficult to recognize sometimes that the reason that you feel the way you do might be because of the relationship that you have with your family, right? Because people do not question their family. People are in therapy for years for these like residual behaviors, for the way that they, interact in relationships. And they don't even think to look at their core relationship and how that impacted them or how it continues to impact them, which is their family. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
So the next moment that we took that resonated beautifully with both of us was a clip from our conversation with Marlene, my yoga teacher. I always get so excited when I mention her. And she was talking about having a choice in life. Everything is a choice. And I think everything that we've talked about so far, all the highlights we've talked about, Gaz with love, Corinne with talking about healing your trauma, Ashley with discussing, cutting toxic people out of your life. That is all a choice. It is a choice to love yourself. It is a choice to love others. It is a choice whether or not you want to acknowledge your trauma or acknowledge that, perhaps there is something that you should investigate within yourselves. And it's incredibly difficult to acknowledge that perhaps your family might not be healthy for you, might not be healthy for you. So it's all a choice. So Marlene talks about that. And I think, I loved when she said this. I was inside, I was jumping up and down. Like, yes, it is right. Everything in life is a choice. You are always like just one small choice away from a left or right path.
Yeah.
Everything is a choice. So let's listen to what Marlene has to say.
I think that I knew that I had a choice. And I'm like, I can either choose to stay in this state of mind and live my life going down the Western route, which was pushed on me many times. But I knew whether even going through this path, as I mentioned, to going to Portugal, meeting this person, it opened up a whole different path for me. And almost 2 years going through the Western to there, that changed me more in 9 days than what I went through in 2 years. So what I'm saying is, there's nothing not to be said that there isn't chemical imbalances or there isn't actual conditions. Absolutely. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't diagnose. I don't know. I don't deal with schizophrenia. That's not what I'm dealing with when it comes to, this path of teaching yoga and fitness and breath work and saying, well, I'm just going to help heal you. That'll all go away. Well, no, we're just giving you the tools to help you manage stress and hopefully be more present in your life to hopefully, get better or maybe make those other therapies work better for you, right? However that is. But what I mean by that is I knew I didn't fit that mold. I knew that wasn't me. It's like, you just know something inside of you saying, no, that's not right. And nobody tested my chemistry. So I'm like, where's this diagnosis coming from? Like, really, where is this science coming from when I don't see a test? Now, when I say that, the endocrine system, and I say this is important because it's the hormones and the balance. Losing my cycle, the endocrine system has a lot to do with energy work, and it has a lot to do with yoga. When we're practicing yoga, we're actually stimulating our endocrine system. And especially as women, it's huge for our hormonal balance, for our state of mind, that vagus nerve that has a lot to do with our brain and gut connection. So I am a true believer that back then, I just had a massive disconnect. I was in the gym, I was working out, but I was disconnected. My transformation of my body didn't match my transformation in my brain. It's like my body changed, but my mind didn't catch up to where I was in that moment. I was still looking at myself, and I still struggle with that. I think, a lot of people do, but is it a big focus? No, meaning like, I'll be like, oh, I still don't look good enough, or it's like this thing. But I think that was the biggest issue for me, is I didn't see my transformation. I was so hard on myself that it was just like, I was just never good enough, So I think of it was a big block, was just a big disconnect. And what I say that is like, I looked at my life here, and then aligning myself with yoga and just all these other things, it kind of brought you back to yourself. Mm-hmm. It's like I found myself. I actually found myself. I was lost for I don't know how many years. What the hell have I been doing for 26 years? It's kind of like how I felt. Like, how have I been living?
Yeah.
I think that woke me up in a big way. Yeah. From jobs I had, experiences I had. I lived in Florida. I worked at Disney World. I had moments there too that I felt really unhappy. And I'm like, I should be really happy right now with this experience. So when I really looked back and I guess reflected, I realized how important it is to have that mind-body connection, and how that will affect how our body functions and how things move, from digestion to sleep to this and that, and how that's going to affect our mental health in such a big way. Wellness has everything to do with our mental health, in many different aspects. So,
okay, so much of what Marlene said just in that clip, let alone the whole conversation we had with her, but so much of what she said in that clip, the lessons, the feelings, they run through all of these conversations that we've had. The idea of being connected with yourself versus being disconnected with yourself. And how a lot of how we live is a state of mind. Like, I think that's something that runs through all 5 of these conversations and the things that we've highlighted. And I think those are some pretty core things. I think those are, personally, I think that's how I really try and live my life. Like, what is my state of mind? Like, I'm in this really terrible situation right now, but what can I learn from it? Like, how can I grow from this? And that's a state of mind.
Yeah, taking everything as an opportunity, not as something that's like, why is this happening to me? It's like, this is happening to me, and like I get to make something of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, like, personally, like, going through like the separation, going through the divorce, like, that was like actually going through the relationship. I had no idea who I was at the end. I was so broken. And then going through the separation and the divorce, I'm like, this is like, I can't even describe, like, this is terrible. Like, it's like I'm in the middle of a hurricane. Like, this just sucks. Mm-hmm. And I could have stayed in that mindset 100%. I probably would have been miserable right now had I stayed in that mindset. Yeah, and just, hung on to the struggles, hung on, like what happened to me, hung on to being a victim. But I was like, no, what can I learn from this? Like, how can I grow from this? Where am I going next? Mm-hmm. Like, how can I improve? So your state of mind is so, so crucial to helping you map out where your life is headed.
Yeah, so true. I think out of all of the episodes in season 1, I think maybe I resonated with this episode the most. Maybe it's because Marlene's a fellow yoga teacher.
I told you she's awesome.
She was awesome. And we had such a good conversation. But the part that really stood out to me that I resonated with was when she said, like, she felt like she finally found herself. Yes. And like, what the hell had she been doing her whole life? And I'm so happy to say that I'm finally in a spot where I can say, like, I found myself. Also, what the hell have I been doing with my entire life? And it's such a relief to finally be there, but it took so much work to get there. And unfortunately, like, a lot of people don't ever make it to that point. And it really is all about the mindset. It really is all about wanting better for yourself. And and surrounding yourself with people and creating these practices in your everyday life that will serve you, that will bring you into alignment.
I think as well, that's the clip that resonated with me the most too, is when she said that, when she was like, who have I been all these years? How have I been living? That struck a chord in me. I was like, yes, because I had that moment too. I remember, through the healing journey, as I was like putting myself back together, I had this moment where I'm like, oh, wow. In reflecting back, I'm different now than what I was a year ago. Like mentally, emotionally, I'm different. How was I living as that other person? And it connects back to what we said about gas and love and like loving yourself. I had always liked myself, but I didn't realize that I didn't know how to love myself. And yeah, 100%, that was probably my biggest moment too with this season. And the thing that I resonated with the most is just realizing that. And you're like, whoa, like when you have that revelation, it's such a powerful self-revelation.
Yeah. No, it's completely crazy. Like we had talked about when we were playing the clip from our episode with Corinne on how like we were just angry people, like holding on to that generational trauma. And like, yeah, that's who I was. I was that angry person. And then I started doing these practices to help heal myself. And yeah, like I got into alignment of like where I was supposed to be. And I was able to heal my way out of that. And I'm so happy that I'm no longer that angry person.
Oh, yeah. And I think one thing we should note too is, yes, we both practice these. We practice them regularly. We've been practicing them regularly for years. If you're struggling with something and, you're like, okay, I'm gonna discover who I am. I'm gonna learn to love myself. I'm gonna go on my own healing journey. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
It doesn't mean you're going to go to one yoga class or 1 week of yoga class or, throw on a meditation app and be healed within a week, a day. Like it takes time and, everyone's journeys are different. Some people can really get to the heart of what their struggles are and work their way through it in a couple months. Some people, years, decades. Like it's all unique to us. So I mean, we've been fortunate enough to have each other and support each other through it, but still, we've done a lot of it on our own, like our own individual. Yeah. Most of it, been very individual.
I can't heal you, and you can't heal me.
No. All I can do is listen to you when you come to your own realizations. But
yeah,
really, that's all I can do is listen. So.
Yeah, exactly. Hold space. So our fifth and final clip was from our last episode 14, that we had with Nikki. And again, we're kind of talking about trauma. This time we're talking about trauma in children and what happens when we don't help heal that trauma in children, or we create a life that perpetuates trauma in the lives of children, and then they grow up to be adults who continue that cycle.
It's so interesting that our last couple guests touched on the idea of trauma, and we didn't go searching for our guests. Like they came to us. So I think it's a very aligned series of guests, very consistent conversations. I think it shows the depth to which trauma lies within each of us and even further within society, if it's coming up in conversation so much. And I know Corinne talked about big T and little t trauma. And I mean, we've all had different experiences and struggles. And when they lie in our body, like that's when trauma occurs. So I think that's why it kept coming up, because so many of us have experienced it in so many different ways. And it's important to address it. So let's take a listen to our clip with Nikki.
So what can happen, like, if we're not offering our children like these outlets, like to journal and to draw, or like these outlets to share their emotions? Like, what are some potential outcomes for these children, like when they grow into adolescence or when they grow into adulthood?
Well, you'll end up with an angry teenager, probably defiant, going against everything you say now, because now they're like, wait, I'm a teenager. You can't tell me what to do anymore. I'm taller than you now. Or you'll get adults that are like, I mean, they're just someone's going to have to heal from them.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to catch that, we need to do that now as children.
Mm-hmm. I see that so often. So I teach teenagers, and I see that so often and especially with boys. I actually had a class this year that was 16 boys and 2 girls. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah. 15-year-olds. And you could see like the dynamic in the class, like the amount of times that I had to stop them and say, guys, what you just said is not kind. Or like, why would you do that? Why did you do that to your friend at lunch? Like, what is going on? And like the attention seeking behavior, because like there's so many emotions that have not been processed, or kids that just want to be seen or like have their emotions heard. And I think what you're doing is so beautiful by saying like, draw me a picture. How are you feeling?
I loved so much of what Nikki had to say there, because I think she's acknowledging the root of a lot of our individual struggles. I love that she's putting together a program for children. And she had shared with us later on some of the struggles that she had as a child and how those manifested in how she was raising her own boys. And she stopped and checked herself and said, whoa, like this is not okay. And that's how she got on her own healing journey, and decided, started to pay attention to how, like, started to be conscious and mindful of how she was interacting with her boys and raising her boys. And that's so tough to do. Like, that's so tough to do. So I give her so much credit.
Yeah, like she is healing herself in parallel with trying to raise children that like don't need to heal from their mother or their father. It's just amazing. The level of awareness that she has is fantastic, and I wish that more parents had this type of awareness. And she said that she doesn't want to raise boys that someone has to heal from.
Oh, I felt that deeply and personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deeply and personally.
Yeah, just so amazing that really is her goal with raising her sons, that she just wants to have loving, caring
humans.
Humans. Yeah.
Oh, it's so important. And I think I started to say it and then I went off in a different direction, but I like how she's getting to the core of where we can teach individuals to connect with themselves. Like a lot of what runs through a lot of these conversations is being disconnected with yourself and trying to find a way to connect back to yourself, body, mind, and spirit. And she's really getting to having children connect to themselves at a young age. Like, what a life skill.
Yeah, and like the means of doing that, as she had mentioned, was journaling or drawing. Like that's helping children identify the emotions that they're experiencing.
And draw, like children love drawing. They will draw you anything.
Yeah.
Draw me a picture of how you feel. And the example that she gave in the episode was her son drawing a picture with someone's head on fire.
Yeah.
Like and just taking the time as a caring adult, not even if you're a parent, but like taking the time as a caring adult to say, oh, like, why is that person's head on fire? What are you feeling right now?
It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it's not something that's done.
A lot of us have the tendency to just say, oh, it's a cute picture, or that's interesting. And maybe talking to, our partners about it, or other parents or other adults, but not asking the kid.
But I think a huge problem is that people don't understand generational trauma. Like they don't understand that they might be, for lack of a better word, like harming their child, like in terms of trauma, because they haven't figured out their own trauma. So by her like creating this program so that children can learn how to distinguish their emotions, it's so amazing, because what she's doing is, raising boys that are able to identify how they're feeling and will hopefully be able to have healthy relationships as they grow.
I wanted her to come on the show. So we connected initially. So we're in the same self-love coaching program. And as all of us are progressing through the program and starting to shape how we want our own coaching programs to look, hers stood out to me because she's focusing on children. And the majority of us are focusing on helping others who are trying to heal from someone who hurt them, or struggles that have been imposed on them by others or by society. Like, a lot of us want to coach people through these like residual effects of struggles, residual impacts of trauma, and she's going right to the root cause so it doesn't even become a problem. And I like, that was mind-blowing to me, but so simple.
Yeah.
And I'm like, more people need to know about what you're doing and connect with you.
Yeah.
Because this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
I know. I said it so many times. You said it. Nikki was amazing. The work that she's doing is amazing. And we are so very looking forward to having a conversation with her in the future as this program develops and matures.
I can't wait to see where it goes. I can't wait to talk to her in a year or 2 years from now and see how many children she's helped.
Yeah.
How many parents she's helped.
Yeah.
How many, that's so great. She's going to do great things.
Yeah.
And she's such a beautiful soul. And we've said that about all of our guests this season and the 5 that we're talking about today. Everyone's got their own story. Everyone's come from their own places. They all have their own purpose, and they're all trying to help others heal. And like, what a selfless act.
It's beautiful.
Oh, I can't even, like, I'm so overcome by just joy and beauty and love right now for these people and what they're putting out into the world.
Yeah. And like, we've had so many great conversations with all of the guests that we've had on season 1 of the podcast. And I'm going to speak for myself. I did not imagine all of these fantastic conversations that we were going to have. I could not have imagined that when we first began with episode 1.
Yeah. I don't know what I was expecting. I think like, we both listened to a lot of podcasts. Nicole actually got me into podcasts a couple years ago. And we're like, yeah, okay, we're going to start a podcast. We're going to talk about what we know. We'll have some guests. We'll learn some things. Hopefully someone else learns some things. But yeah, I would agree with you. You can speak for both of us on that, in saying that I've come out a more enlightened person because of the people we've spoken to. Someone who knows better how to connect to myself and connect to others because of what I've been taught by them. And just like knowing these people, like, I think that's been my favorite thing about doing the podcast, is just connecting with all these beautiful souls.
Yep. Connecting and building that community that we want to build. And, you know, this is the end of season 1. And for the next few months, we want to focus on continuing to build that community, to grow it. And we cannot wait to come back with season 2 with some more amazing guests and great, helpful conversations.
Yeah. So in the meantime, while Nicole and I are on a little bit of a hiatus, if you would like to connect with us, you can connect to us on our socials. So we are on Instagram at sisterhood_of_healing. We're also on TikTok at Sisterhood of Healing, and you can connect with us through email at sisterhoodofhealing@gmail.com. Nicole's also got her own page.
Yeah, so I have a page for fitness coaching and yoga. So on Instagram, you can find me at mindful2_movement.
And within the next, hopefully month or 2, I should have my one-to-one coaching program up and running. And from there, I do want to build a group coaching program, which I'm so excited to have people connect to each other through their healing, because there is such power in that. So if you wanted to connect with me, just DM me on one of our socials, and we can talk about how to do some one-on-one coaching, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, so much for listening up to this point. We really appreciate all of your love and support through season 1. And yeah, we'll talk soon in season 2.
Yep. Bye, sisters.
Bye.
That's it for our show today. Thanks for joining. Remember, you can always reach out to us on our socials, on Instagram at sisterhood_of_healing, or on TikTok at Sisterhood of Healing. We love to hear from you, so please reach out to us at any time. Thank you for journeying with us today. We'll see you next time.